Right, so it's a little bit past 11, so I think we can get going. Want to welcome all of you to the Governance Committee meeting of the Maine Recovery Council. And we have our agenda. First, I'd like to start with introductions. I'm Paul Vinsel. I'm a physician member of the Maine Recovery Council and the chair of the Governance Committee. Pat?
It's still morning. Good morning. My name is Pat Kimball, and I'm the current chair of the Maine Recovery Council.
Brendan?
Hi, my name is Brendan O'Neill. I'm with the Maine Attorney General's office.
Thank you. Holly?
Good morning. My name is Holly Stover. I'm a House representative from House District 48. And also, I don't think I often say this, that I work for a small nonprofit down here, the Community Resource Council, and for 9 years, which just seems amazing, 9 years we've been running a addiction outreach program in collaboration with the Booth Bay Harbor Police Department. Yeah, and so I manage that and work with them as a liaison.
Thank you,
Thank
Holly.
you.
And Chastity?
Hi everyone, Chastity Toole. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Executive Director of Maine Recovery Council.
Thank you. Maggie?
And I'm Maggie McLaughlin. I'm representing one of the litigating subdivisions and Director of Health and Human Services for the City of Portland.
Thank you. Betsy?
Good morning, Betsy Fitzgerald, representing another one of the litigating subdivisions.
Yeah. Thanks. Tess Parks?
Hey everyone, I'm Tess. I represent the seat for a person experiencing substance use disorder, and I am the policy director for an advocacy group.
Thank you. Grayson?
Hi, my name's Grayson. I'm with the Attorney General's office.
Thank you. Joe?
Good morning, everyone. Joe Everett, the CEO at the Opportunity Alliance, chair of the Program and Grants Committee, and a member of the council.
And Elizabeth will be joining us by phone because she's out of the country and doesn't have good internet access for the video. Elizabeth?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am Elizabeth Porter, and again, yes, I apologize for being on audio only, and I am the coordinator for the Maine Recovery Council.
Great. Elizabeth, I hope you are having fun wherever you are.
Thank you.
Maggie, your notes have been fantastic. Would you be able to continue doing that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take notes on this time, but maybe as we staff up internally, we can think about how to transfer that with Elizabeth and Chastity in the future. But happy to take that on today. Let me pull that up.
Okay, great. Thank you. So on our agenda, we have four major things. One is to discuss the Maine Recovery Council clerk position. And that is in regards to bylaws and how we want to recommend, recommendations for the position. Number two is to update on the public forum planning, which we had discussed at the Recovery Council meeting. Number three, update on the needs assessment that we had discussed. And number four, update on how we can manage executive sessions along in privacy for the people who apply for grants and when we score them. So I'd like to start with the clerk position. And Grayson and Brendan both sent out the clerk manual put out by the Secretary of State. And Brendan had a really brief, really nice talk, a nice brief discussion of what the requirements of the clerk are. Did everyone get a chance to see that? I'm going to see if I can pull it up and I'll just review it here.
And Paul, I can put it up on the screen if that would help.
Yeah, that would be helpful, I think. Thanks.
Okay. Give me 2 seconds. And so if you want to keep going, I'll work on putting it up.
Okay. One of the things that we have to talk about is the bylaws change, and the bylaws for section 1.3 in the bylaws is in regards to the clerk, and it states the clerk of the council will be an attorney or employee of the Maine Attorney General's office. The person designated as the clerk may be changed from time to time by the chair of the council. So we will, what I would like us to do is make a recommendation to the Recovery Council that they change that bylaws, and we can discuss today how that change might be.
And Paul, I've got, I wrote up a proposed, language amendment that I'm happy to put up on the screen as well, just to get the discussion started.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm anxious to see what I came up with one also, and I'm anxious to see yours first.
Okay. Give me 2 seconds. So I'm first putting up my email or the language.
Let's do the email first, because I think it
Okay.
would be nice for people to get an idea of what the requirements of the clerk are.
Okay, it should be up on the screen. I'm not sure if I can, well, let me see if I can blow it up.
Oh, yes, that's much better.
Okay. I can keep increasing it if folks need me to.
Can people see that? Okay, looks like people are okay.
And just to give you a roadmap of the email, so because it's a lot of words, what I did was I just copied and pasted, which is the bolded sort of indented language. The part of the Secretary of State's clerk manual that's attached to the email that, where the Secretary of State's office describes what the clerk's responsibility is. So that, this committee had a sense of the kinds of duties that we're talking about. So you have an ability to think about what, which position with the council is the right one to carry out these tasks. Separately, I will note that you can see here I shared both the clerk manual and one of the annual reports that we filed for the council. If you open the annual report, you'll see that I'm named as the clerk, but the annual report was completed by Haley Taranko, who is my office's former Grayson. And Grayson has thankfully taken on Haley's work putting together the filings with the Secretary of State's office. But I am, as Grayson supervisor, technically the clerk, so I review, information for the annual reports. Hopefully I got it right. So if you find any errors, I apologize. But I just want to highlight that because, the person who is the clerk can also, ask, to the extent it's a, primarily administrative task. A higher level person could be the clerk, and another person, could handle the more administrative duties of the filings.
Thank you, Brendan. One of the questions I had, especially when I looked at the 2022 report, it reports costs of or payments, and of course none of us are paid for anything, but does the report include the money we put out in grants?
I can't tell you that off the top of my head. That's a good question. I think it might, but I'd have to review the clerk manual to see the answer to that. Oh, looks like Grayson has the answer.
I actually had to reach out to the Secretary of State's office recently about this, and it does not include money that goes out in grants, just expenses.
So think of it as, so Grayson, expenses, does that include like the council's administrative staff, any vendor support?
Yep, it would typically be any staff costs or vendors, as well as like mileage reimbursement, the gov delivery that the email notices go out on, stuff like that.
Or if the council pays for, you know, venue to host its annual meeting, things like that. Thank you, Grace.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So it looks to me, Grace, and correct me if I'm wrong, that really if the way the clerk would work is that after each meeting, the clerk would write down how many people attended the meeting, a brief discussion of what the meeting was about. And does that include, and then, so if they did that with each meeting, then then they would submit that at the end of the year.
So the way that I've done it, and it can be done differently than this, but it's the way I do it and the way that Haley did it. It's typically once a month. I will go in and enter all of the meetings, both Zoom meetings and in person. You don't have to do a description of the meeting, just what the meeting was, like which committee it was or full council, and how many attendees were there, as well as how long the meeting was. And then I only report expenses for the in-person full council meetings. I don't report expenses with the Zoom meetings. And you do have an option to say what that modality is. I submit those monthly, and the monthly reports can be edited at any time throughout the year. But in December, when you turn in the annual report, which is a compilation of those monthly reports, you cannot edit the annual report once it's been submitted.
And
Okay.
Paul, you can see I've highlighted on the screen the language that Secretary of State's office uses to caution. Obviously, they've been around this track before with commissions and have observed folks not having a clear appreciation of how much work might be involved. And so they strongly advise people do it, you know, as the meetings happen.
Right. And it looks like if you do it like Grayson does monthly, so you've got the council meeting and then the committee meetings. If you keep that up to date, it's probably not that onerous to do. If you waited till December 15th, it probably would be really difficult.
That's exactly right.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much. So Brendan, would you like to share now? I'm sorry, is there any further discussion on that? I apologize. And I can't see everyone right now, so, oh, I guess I can go through the thing. Okay. And Brendan, would you like to put up your language for the bylaws?
Let me know if this is if you want me to increase the size of this. And for Liz Fortier, let me know if you want me to read this out loud.
Brendan, I'm happy to say that your language is just about the same as mine, except I separated the first sentence into two sentences.
As I say, this is just a proposal. You can do what you want. I'm sure your language is better than mine.
I don't know, you're the lawyer. The clerk of the council will be appointed by the chair of the council and will be either a current member of the council or a current member of the council staff. The chair may change the clerk appointee from time to time, and any such change may be altered by the council pursuant to section 4.7 of these bylaws. So let's open the discussion for this. If anyone has questions or comments or thinks things should be changed. Yes, Pat.
So my only question is this to be assumed it will be done annually? Because the chair could change annually?
It's certainly, the language is drafted in a way that, that when it says the chair may change the clerk appointee from time to time, that means you can do it, at any time and multiple times throughout the year, throughout the chair's tenure. So presumably the chair, once the chair is appointed, would want to go ahead and appoint a clerk so that there is somebody in place to handle these duties. So I think you'd want to do that right away. But you're not locked in to that choice, according to this language.
Okay, thank you.
Though, one thing I want to point out to Pat's point is the last clause of that last sentence, after the comma, and any such change may be altered by the council pursuant to section 4.7 of these bylaws. I don't know whether that's entirely necessary. The council may wish to retain that authority to revisit, a change, but I just want to point out that, like, from my perspective, the clerk handles a pretty administrative task. And, if the council has a concern about the chair's actions regarding the clerk, it's possible that the council might have larger concerns about the chair. But, it's up to you whether, there's potentially no harm in leaving that clause in, for the sake of having it.
So if anyone's questioning what 4.7 is, I'd like to read that. It's pretty short. And it's section 4.7, manner of acting. The council shall act by consensus. In the event consensus cannot be achieved, the council shall make decisions by 3/5 of votes cast in person or by remote method in compliance with the remote meeting policy at any duly called and held meeting of the council at which a quorum is present. Each council member shall have one vote. Thank you, Brendan. Yeah, we can discuss whether we want to have that in the language or not.
So I was just going to raise something slightly tangential, Paul, that I think is worth taking up at another time. I'm fine with not everyone's going to be Pat and what's going on in the world. I think thinking about the power of the chair, because Pat and I and a few of us, Paul, we're down to the wire. So Pat has put blood, sweat, and tears 45 to 50 hours a week. I just think that we should take that up sometime around because not everyone's Pat Kimball, as we know. So I'm fine with the language, but I think, and Pat, I think you and I have even talked about this. So I think it's just in the spirit of like making sure the council is really intact but I think the language is fine for now, from my point of view.
Pat.
Yeah, so to piggyback on Joe, that's sort of the conversation. We know, and I know this is a public meeting, but I'm going to say it. We know we will have a new governor, and most likely we may have a new attorney general. And so in that shift, right now things are moving smoothly. I'm not saying that they won't move smoothly, but we do have to be prepared. And so one of the things that, and again, it's not in the bylaws, I'd like to have a conversation around whether we believe the clerk should be within the council, meaning that would either be the executive director or the coordinator, because those are contracted through the council versus being an employee of the attorney general's office. And so those were questions I would have as this chair as to who I would appoint. But I'm assuming that if we appointed, and I'm just throwing it out, if we appointed Chastity as the clerk, Chastity can ask Grayson to help her to do the reporting. So she can assign, as the clerk, assign tasks to people, but she technically would be, or that position, the executive director would technically be the clerk. And those are just things in my head.
And Pat,
So-
let me just clarify what you just said. I mean, I think it's more accurate that the executive director could task the coordinator to fill it out.
The other, when I was reading this and I was looking at the clerk manual, it seemed like if we were going to have a member of the council do this, it would seem reasonable for that to be actually the chair of the governance committee. Because the governance committee kind of handles all of we set up boundaries for the council. But I want, and when I'm looking at it, I don't think that this is too onerous of a position. But I wanted to see what other people thought. And Grayson, especially you, what would you think of that? Okay, no thoughts on that.
So, Paul, that would be my second choice, but I'm kind of with Pat on the staff thing.
Okay.
But I like I like that idea, but I think I'd like to think more about where Pat is around the staff.
Okay.
Because we are volunteers and their staff. So, and I know it's hard, but I think of it like a board, like my board. It would probably be me.
Okay. Maggie?
I agree with Joe. I think the better fit would probably be with staff. Also because you're representing what's happening in all the committees and documenting that. And as governance chair, you may not be in all those committees. So then you have to assume that you have an appropriate flow of information reaching you, which may or may not always work.
Okay. And Grayson?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo everybody else's sentiments that what I think in particular would make it a little bit easier if it was staff would be that the expense reporting is based off the reconciliation lists that come from our finance department, which they already I've already asked Paul to copy Chastity when he sends those out, just to keep her posted on the council's finances. So it would just be like one less step if it was somebody on staff.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think what we'll need to do is, I think we will need to have I guess I would look for a motion that we change the bylaws to read for section 1.3 clerk. The clerk of the council will be appointed by the chair of the council, will be either a current member of the council or a current member of the council staff. The chair may change the clerk appointee from time to time, and any such change may be altered by the council pursuant to section 4.7 of these bylaws.
You have that motion, Paul.
Okay, great. So that was moved by Betsy,
I'll second that.
and Holly seconds it. Grayson, would you like to call a roll?
I would, but I have a quick question before I do. Holly, are you in this committee officially?
I thought so. Am
Okay.
I?
Who-
I get the Zoom notices, so I assumed I was.
I send them out to the full council, but
Oh, perhaps I'm not. Well, I'm here. So if
no
I'm
worries
not
either way.
official, I can't second it. We'll have someone else do it. I enjoy being here, though.
I can second it.
Thank you,
I
Matt.
can
Holly,
make that, I can make that happen, Holly.
Yeah.
Hey, you're doomed now.
And Holly, I think you're.
I'm updating the list anyways. I will second that.
Thank you.
Now, before we vote, any further discussion? Maggie, you had your hand up a little bit, or you were just, okay. All right, Grayson, would you like to do a vote?
Of course. Paul Vinsel,
Yes.
Betsy Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Joe Everett,
Yes.
Maggie McLaughlin,
Yes.
Pat Kimball,
Yes.
Hess Parks.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Grayson or Brendan, can you clarify? Does this have to go before the full council as a review and then vote on it in September? Does it have to be reviewed for the public?
As long as it's included in the notice of the meeting, it can be voted on next month. It just has to go, the
It just has to
page
be
we're looking at now.
included
Yep.
in the notice. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And
course.
Pat, you can see section 8.1 of the bylaws for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to clarify, what we just did was approve a recommendation to the Maine Recovery Council that they amend the bylaws pursuant to this. All right, great discussion. What I realized, the governance committee, we have our meetings here, and then I get ready to report to the council, and I'm all excited that, you know, we've come up with these decisions and these plans, and every one of them gets shot down by the council. And I realize that what this committee's job is really to put boundaries on the council and how the council is run. And that will naturally be not accepted by, or not, you know, not appreciated by members of the council who are all, you know, intelligent, independent thinkers. So now I'm going to be better prepared for that mentally. So the next one is the update on the public forum. And in reviewing the Recovery Council meeting and how they thought we should do that, most of them felt that it should be a one-day meeting. The second Thursday of December is December 11, and that it has traditionally been the day of the public meeting, the second Thursday. And then what we usually, and they wanted it to be a combination of in-person and video, which Grayson felt we could manage. And it seems like if we did that, we could have it at the DHHS building that we use. So it probably wouldn't be an additional expense. And that Pat was talking about putting out a doodle poll for what date people would like. And then what we would do is we would have the forum, and then if there's any other normal agenda for a normal MRC meeting, that would be performed after the public forum. Any thoughts on that?
Nope,
And
and
did-
thanks for the reminder. We can put out that doodle poll. I realize that on December 11th, I probably won't be able to attend. So we want to be able to see how many people will be able to be there. So Chastity and I, and maybe Grace and Elizabeth can help us. We can put out and use that week and find out if there's a date that week that's better for all the council members. And I'm pretty sure that if we had anything to vote on, we can tag it on. And as we get closer, we'll know. Tag it on to that meeting. And then refresh my memory. No, it's January. Okay, never mind. In the December meeting, I think you have to present the list of people who want to be considered for offices. Am I not mistaken on that one? It's voted on in January at the
Good question.
annual meeting, but I think 30 days before that meeting, council has to be informed as to who wants what office. And Elizabeth just volunteered to do the doodle. If people will remind her that it needs to be done.
Okay. And she wants to be reminded of the date options.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. Pat, that's a really good question. As I remember, that's how we did it.
Yep. But
Chas,
that's easy enough to do. We can submit names and make those announcements. Again, it's just a short agenda item, letting people know who is willing to serve in office, or, but it's because it's not voted on technically until January.
Chastity?
So does it have to be December? The year before, the first one we did was in November. So do we have flexibility for folks, or are we really tied into that timeline in December?
For the public forum,
Yeah.
I don't think we're tied into December. I think it just happened. That's what we did.
Yeah. So maybe you're right, Chastity. Maybe November might be a better date.
So maybe we'll do a doodle for both months to see where it looks better for folks.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So just November would be November 13. Okay, good. Any other thoughts on the public forum? Yes, Brendan.
I'm trying to find the public forum provision. The meeting at which Pat asked about the meeting at which the officers are elected. And section 4.1 talks about the first meeting of the calendar year shall include electing officers of the council. So if the first meeting of the year is the first meeting of the calendar year, so that would not be December. So whether the public forum is the meeting at which the officers are elected, I'm not sure that they need to be the same meeting.
I think what she was saying though, Brendan, is that the like nominations for officers or people putting their
Oh,
name. for officers
right. Yes.
need to
Yeah.
be done 30 days before.
Thank you, Paul.
But I like Chastity's idea of maybe just forgetting December, because that seems to be kind of a problem, but maybe putting it in November. Joe?
Well, since Brandon went a little bit down the rabbit hole that Pat was in, and the officers, I'm being tangential again. I think in the spirit of change, Pat, that we should, I don't know if we can put this on the agenda to talk about kind of what that looks like in January. Does that mean all the committee chairs change just because there's going to be a major change in November of 2026? So what do we want to do kind of along the same spirit of the chair? And I'm talking in code a little bit because it's something maybe we could pick up in terms of a governance conversation.
Yep.
And that's all I'll say, because I know that's not really the topic we're talking about right now.
Transition planning is always a wonderful topic, though.
It's a good topic. Don't be caught off guard. Not a good thing.
Yeah, you guys are right. I haven't been thinking
So
of that.
Paul, I can send you, I think I have a copy or somebody does, of the guidelines that we had for the last forum, the times that we used in how that sort of worked out. And we can review those and see if those look like they'll match what the council was asking for.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Any other, oh, Maggie.
Just for the notes, who was it that's sending out, figuring out the doodle poll, what day and time?
Elizabeth,
Got it. Thanks.
she volunteered in the chat.
I want to read that chat again. Yep, she did. So Elizabeth, what I would say is she asked for dates to put in. So I would put in November 13 as a Thursday and December 11 as the second Thursday of December. Any other date? What other dates would people like to have considered? Would you like to consider the Friday after, like the second Friday of the month? Yeah, we might as well. Okay, Elizabeth. Maggie says, yeah, why not? So maybe December 11, I'm sorry, December 12 and November 14. I think that makes sense. That gives four good options. Elizabeth, did you get that?
I'm
Yes,
sending
I
it to
did.
her
Thank
Teams too,
you.
so she has it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And those are all day, correct? Is that
Pat, you're muted.
Oh, I'm muted. I think it's actually till like 3. I'll check over the notes from last time, but it's not technically all day. I think it was like Chassis, like 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon,
Yeah,
something
it was
like that.
basically like planning for 4 hours is what goes out, knowing that you're probably going to be on the other end if there's a good turnout.
Yeah. Yeah, because we would stop the signing up by 3, but if you signed up before 3, we would stay and continue to listen. I think that's what it was. So I'll look those up and see if I can get those.
Okay, great. And the next one is the update, the next agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Does anyone else have comments or questions on the public forum? Okay, so the next thing on the agenda was an update on the needs assessment. And I thought we had a really good discussion of that. And it was felt by many of the members that the next needs assessment should have priorities for our next funding cycle. And priorities may be different than what they were because we've already put out some money. So, and the face of the opioid epidemic really is changing a little bit. So we may have new priorities, and how do we go about getting those? We talked about the Moss Center is going to be putting out some data. We talked about Dr. Johnson, but before we wanted Pat to talk to Dr. Johnson, we wanted to have a little bit better idea of what the Recovery Council felt we needed from a needs assessment. And also that Joe had talked about that he wanted that discussed also in the grants committee. Does anyone have any other recollection of what we were talking about with that, and any other comments?
So Paul, of the grants, I like the way you're going with this. I think this is the group that plans. I think the grants committee, what I'm planning to do primarily is review the shared China, the shared community health needs assessment that the hospital systems and the 10 community actions. And I'm right now working on kind of trying to pull out what could be relevant to the Maine Recovery Council. And Chastity, I'll get with you, but or this weekend probably because the meeting's coming right up. But I think our charge is kind of look at what's out there and maybe funnel that back to this group or the full council, because I recall kind of the thought that that there are a lot of needs assessments happening or have happened that the grants committee can look at and then maybe inform this process. But that's all I got. I don't remember anything about planning per se. Anything more than what I just said.
That's great. I think that's wonderful because you're right. There are, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And what we want to do is use the data that's out there and then come up with what our priorities for the next grant cycle are.
Do people have other suggestions in this group while we're a smaller group around other needs assessments that we should look at? Go ahead, Maggie. Yeah.
The city of Portland, actually together with USM, had done a pretty substantive assessment. So we're trying to refine it in a way that's absorbable. It'll probably, depending on timeline, I think we can get that in a place where we can have something to share out. But it basically looked at the entire continuum of care with substance use disorder in Cumberland County. And we'll have some highlights, and it had significant input from people with lived experience as well as providers. So anyway, I'll put that on the actions list for me to share through.
Pat? Pat, you're muted.
Is it? We should get a hold of the Moss Center and see where they are with collecting the data from municipalities, as well as incorporating, and Tess knows more about it than I do, but last summer, a year ago, MeWrap had, I don't know how many listening sessions, mostly with people with lived experience sharing what they saw as needs in their community and having that part of the review also. It Again, it's just, for me, I think the longer conversation is, do we hire somebody who can gather all those reports together and put together a summary that matches sort of the goals of where the council is, rather than the council go out and do its own? That it's really more of a review of what's currently out there, and go from there.
Thank you.
Can I just, Chastity, do you have capacity to do that? I'm a huge Kim Johnson fan, so I like the idea of hiring, but I'm just asking you, Chastity, do you believe that staff have capacity? And I know you're 2 weeks into the job, and Pat, you know as well, but I like the idea, but I want to, Chastity, what are your thoughts?
I honestly don't feel confident in answering that either way yet, as I'm still trying to figure stuff out. I'd like to say yes, absolutely, but I don't know yet.
Okay.
Pat, do you have a contact person at the Moss Center?
Yeah.
Could you share that with me?
Sure.
And perhaps I can contact them to see what they have and kind of what their timeline is.
Because they are technically, again, in this report, they're technically working with every county except two. And they really are gathering where all the opiate dollars funding is going. Plus, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that new bill that went out where everyone has to fill out the yearly report, it's the Moss Center that will be collecting all the data from that, and reporting out where all of the funds from the opiate settlements are going.
Maggie,
I think we would be well placed maybe to frame this scope at a pretty high level rather than really at a detailed level of where not going into depth, say, in service coverage, maybe acknowledging maybe there's gaps in the continuum of care and they look different in these different geographies like this. But assuming that we shouldn't push for greater detail than that, in part because so much is going to change partially with the impacts of the upcoming kind of flow down requirements and things like that on Maine care eligibility, that is probably critical to a lot of the reimbursement streams that our partners and providers are using. And so I think we might get into an analysis paralysis trying to perfectly match, oh, this area has 20% coverage or that one has 55% coverage. And then we find out, 8 months down the line that all is up in the air. And so I think at this stage, keeping it pretty high level to recognize there's gaps here, there's gaps there, and generally the feedback is this is the most important priority from folks might be where we need to land this at the moment, combined with kind of what the council wants to do. So just a thought.
Thank you. Brendan?
If the newer members of the council want to see the prior work that was done by Dr. Johnson, I think it's available on the council's website, but it's deeply buried in the calendar page on some random meeting that, I don't have the knowledge how to search for it. A lot of the council's reporting or reports or products are unfortunately stuck that way within the calendar page. And ideally they could be put somewhere else on the council's, maybe I'm out of date on that, but I think it's all still like the prevention groups report, for example, is probably not in a convenient place on the council's page. Anyway, that could probably be found and made available to the newer council members if you're interested. So that's all.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other thoughts on the needs assessment? So what we'll do is the grants committee is going to look at some of the data and report back to us. Maggie's going to try to get the needs assessment in Cumberland County or report on that we can use as data. And if Pat will share the contact with me with the Moss Center, I will contact them regarding what data they have and what a timeline for more data, and then we can go from there. Okay, good. The last thing on the agenda is the executive session. And
Hold on before you go to that.
oh, I apologize,
It's
Chastity.
okay. This is only tangentially related, and it's probably a test question. In thinking of the Moss Center and the reporting, when does the reporting start? Like, is it the end of this calendar year municipalities need to start reporting? And was it backdated? I don't remember how legislation was written.
It starts in January of 2026, and technically the law is written that they have to submit their report to the Health and Human Services Committee, which then becomes a public document. So I'm very glad to hear that the Moss will be taking on that role of making it actually accessible to the general public. Brendan, do you recall if the law does backdating on spending? I don't believe that it does.
I don't believe it does either. And technically, and I can pull it up in a minute. The reports are required to come into the AG's office, and I think in January for the prior calendar year's use of the money, and then we have to make it available in February to the HHS committee. The statute doesn't require the reporting to go to the Moss Center, but our office, my expectation is our office is going to say, as a matter of policy, if the subdivisions, provide their reporting to the portal that the Moss Center is creating, we would deem that to be, a report to us, so that it would be publicly available by the time of the reporting to the HHS committee.
And in my summary of the needs assessment, I left out one of probably the most important thing is test the listening sessions statewide that MIRAP performed. Did they put out kind of a summary of that? And do we have access to that?
Yes, we have a 16-page report. Would it be helpful? Should I share it with the full council, or Chastity, if I send it to you? Can you make sure everyone gets a copy?
Because that has testimony from people with lived experience. Is that correct? And has stories.
Yes, yep, we did 33 listening sessions, and the format was pretty simple. Just gathering impacted folks, asking them what they wish their community had, available gaps, wish lists for things that they wish they could see. And then we also did a public policy survey, just getting an idea of how folks land on different issues. And I think that survey, we can also gather information on what people's priorities are. So for instance, one of the questions was, do you support funding for recovery community centers? And almost every single person ranked that a 7, which is the top number. So I would highly suggest people in the council read it. It's really informative of what people with lived experience are facing and what they wish their community had.
Yeah, thank you very much. I look forward to reading that one. Any other discussion on the needs assessment? Okay, let's move to the executive session. So we want to update on executive session, and just to kind of recap, the concern is that when the Recovery Council discussed the scorings of individual grant applications, we did that in public, and all of our comments were in public. And many of the the people who put in grant applications and many of the Recovery Council members felt very uncomfortable doing that. And the question is, how much of that can be done in executive session and still comply with the FOA statutes? And Deb Poulin had talked about when they do a RFP process, the scorers discuss this, all the people who score discuss those scores and why they got those scores, and that is private. And then the results of their scores and the results of their discussion comes out in the public meeting. So the question is, would we be able to adopt something similar to that and still comply with FOA? I think I've got that right, as far as that's the concern and where we're at. Pat?
So this is Brendan. Yeah, Brendan's still here. So this is a Brendan question. So the importance of doing this scoring in some sort of other meeting, but I think it's the word executive session that actually has a legal twist to it. So I think we can't call it executive session. But I do believe, like the state does and most does, we can have a meeting to discuss the scoring and the awards, as long as we make the minutes to those in the scores public, I believe. But I think it's the word, or the 2 words, executive session, that have legal meaning, which means we can't do scoring in executive session. I don't think it meets the criteria.
Paul, do you want me to go next?
Yes, I would.
So the scenario Pat just described where the applications are discussed in a non-public meeting and the notes are then later publicly available through FOA upon request is is a procedure that's authorized by statute. I believe it's by statute. I'm hunting down the statute as well as the regulations that govern that allow the executive branch agencies when they run an RFP process to follow the procedure Pat just described. And I think Deb described this as well. The problem is you need that statute in order to do that, and the council does not have that statute. The Freedom of Access Act requires everything that a covered agency does be public, but it has an exception, which is if there's a statute that designates the actions of the meetings or the records of the agency confidential, then it falls outside the scope of FOA. I said, and I think the last time this came up, maybe in a full council meeting, it's my view currently, and I'm in the middle of reviewing this, that the executive session statute in FOA does not permit the council to review or consider or discuss applications as part of executive session. And the only solution that I've identified so far is to amend the statute that governs the council, or that that is related to the council, to allow for such confidential discussions. So I'm in the process of putting together the kind of legal basis for that proposal. It's a policy choice that the council would have to make. The legal piece of it is examining, whether it's necessary and how the change would be made, legally to the statutes. So at least on an interim basis, my view is that FOA does not support the council having these discussions confidentially, and that we would need to amend the statute to permit it.
So the statute is different than the bylaws. The statute is the actual law that produced the MRC. Is that correct?
That's right.
And how do you change a statute?
Tess, do you want to, or Representative Stover? Seems like there's a number of people here who might be, I can answer that question, but I'm happy to defer to those who actually do this work.
Well, simply put, you would whatever that amendment is, you would put forward as a piece of legislation, get a sponsor, put forward the change, the statutory change. It'd be assigned to the policy committee most aligned with that, and if all goes well, which it typically does, that's how it happens. Then it moves to the House and the Senate, barring any complications there, moves on to the governor's office. On those simple statutory changes that don't really have large policy implications, I don't want to call them just perfunctory, but they can be almost as routine and perfunctory. Should be. Should be. We do them for municipal things every session. So you can do it. Be willing to sponsor it, and that's how you get it done. If anyone else wants to add anything.
And Holly, go ahead, Brendan.
I guess Representative Stover, is it still possible to introduce legislation at this point?
Yeah, for the, it is a short session, which they tend to lean into what's an emergency, but I think that we've seen a number of new initiatives come forward that wouldn't really meet anybody's expectation of urgent or emergent, and they do get, it has to go through Ledge Council, but it should be a statutory change that benefits the council should be weighed as something that's urgent. You don't want to wait to get it done. So it could go in for January.
And there's no money attached.
Another great point. There's no fiscal note.
There's no
again,
fiscal note.
There should be
Holly,
no
I do have a
argument.
question though. If we submit a required change, does that open the whole statute up? I mean,
Not
could the
necessarily.
legislature look at it and say, well, while we're at it, why don't we change this?
I mean, you said could,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely could. I would say unlikely unless there was something,
Okay.
some big ugly wart somewhere that needed to be taken care of, but there's not. I mean, I've done several for mostly municipal matters, but they kind of go pretty smoothly, especially when there's no fiscal note.
There's no fiscal note.
We are at a little bit after noon, but Brendan, just to wrap this up, would you be able to look into that and produce, maybe we could come up with language for a statute?
Yeah, and what I'm looking for is the language that authorizes executive branch agencies to have those discussions confidentially as part of its RFP process. And I would, look to that to mirror that language for the council.
Yes. I think that would be a really great idea. I think that would,
The one, a point to wonder about though is, whether, I don't know that there are other grant making committees or groups or bodies that are not executive branch agencies. And that, I think I'd want to like examine whether other, sort of governmental or quasi-governmental grant making bodies or entities that are not executive branch agencies are similarly permitted to do its grant process in any way confidentially.
yes. Because if they can, then that makes it easier for us.
Right. But if they can't, cuts the other way.
Yes. All right. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn the meeting?
Can I just add something to the next meeting?
Yes.
I'd like to discuss terms of council members because I'm a little confused as to the new members that are added on midterm. Are those to fulfill the remainder of the term of the person they replaced, or are those full terms of 2 years? And I don't think that's clear anywhere in the bylaws. Brendan, I may be mistaken, but if we could have that discussion about when people come in midpoint, what their terms look like, their appointments.
Okay.
That's a good one, Pat. Okay. Any other comments before we adjourn? Well, good meeting, everyone. Thank you very much, and I hope you
Thank you,
enjoy
Paul.
the weekend.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Bye all.